It was on the temporal and spatial accessibility of AEDs in terms of increasing accessibility for lay people and bystander responders. So we're looking at a couple different factors. So AHA actually recommends guidelines on where to place them, but the problem is there's lots of privately placed and some are public, so there's not really a centralized kind of system or governing body. So the thing that we're actually looking at is that current guidelines focus primarily on spatial factors, so like where witness cardiac arrest occur, but they don't really look at a temporal aspect, which is like hours of operations or when the building is like unlocked. So that's really what we focused on to see that kind of gap in coverage, in AED coverage. So we actually found of the cardiac arrests that occur near an AED, 1 in 5 occur when that AED is inaccessible due to hours of operations or the buildings being closed. It's not bad, but we still want to do whatever we can to, you know, maximize our response. I think that's one of the challenges with this kind of idea. So we're trying to find not really a workaround, but something that we can do to avoid that problem. So instead of trying to make schools extend their hours or place their AEDs outside where someone can take it or it might get damaged, we're going to try and focus on locations that already have extended hours and kind of emphasize that aspect of AED placement. From our research in Canada, we actually found that Tim Hortons, Subway, or a variety of different not intuitive locations provided a good coverage spread. But of course, as you go from city to city, not everything's going to be the same. Specifically on some of the results that we found, we actually found offices, schools, recreational facilities kind of experienced a big drop in coverage because they're open, like offices are 9 to 5, schools maybe like 8 to 4. But we found transportation facilities and public transportation, they're usually open for extended periods of time, so that was quite a good location type to look at. Our part 1 was to establish that there is a problem or confirm that there's a problem, and we found the 1 in 5. And then our part 2 was proposing a potential solution, and we focused on optimization of AED locations. And that's where it comes into the spatial versus spatial temporal kind of approaches. And from that comparison, we got the 25% increase. So we compared a spatial only, so a AED deployment strategy that only focuses on where cardiac arrests occur in relationship to AEDs. And we compared that to a AED approach that takes into account both location as well as this temporal side, this hours of operation. And we actually found that the spatial and temporal approach increased coverage by around 25%. So that kind of reversed the effects of the limited. I think there's the trade-off of how many AEDs you can place versus the resources. Because if we had infinite resources, we could just place them everywhere, and that wouldn't be a problem. So definitely there's that trade-off, and we're trying to maximize our efficiency and effectiveness from the given resources. But the beauty about AEDs is that they're designed to be used by people without medical training, and that's what we're trying to maximize, I guess. So an alternative way of looking at the improvement in coverage gain that we get from including spatial and temporal information is efficiency. So how many AEDs does it require to cover the same amount of historical cardiac arrests? And we actually found by including both those two informations that we get approximately a 33% efficiency. So basically, we're reducing the cost to cover the same amount of people or cardiac arrest.